In a world where foldables are becoming increasingly common and, surprisingly, increasingly affordable, the Google Pixel 9 Pro Fold, formerly known as the Pixel Fold, continues to stand out amongst the crowd. We are now 2 generations in on foldable from Google, and the landscape around foldables has changed quite a bit. And while the incumbent Samsung, they continue to iterate on their existing foldables, the Z Flip and the Z Fold. We now have trifolds that have a real shot in just a few years to become mainstream. We're seeing new foldables from established players like OnePlus and Oppo, the Ultra Flip by Motorola, and a rumored foldable by Apple. But in today's world, with all this new competition, can Google's foldable continue to compete? Let's find out. After completing my original Pixel Fold video back in October 2023, there was a few things that stood out. Chief among them was the design stance that Google took. The general shape was what really helped the original Google Pixel Fold to stand out. It was a more squat, squarish design, more like a passport, and it was very pocketable, very premium, with very, very nice materials used. Overall, it was a great device with gorgeous design details, but the real question is, how do you improve on an already classic design? Well, first and foremost, the design is where Google really changes things up. And honestly, in a lot of ways, it makes the original Pixel Fold design look dated. They've updated the materials to be a matte finish on the rails for both the porcelain and black versions. This change dramatically reduces fingerprints and, I have to say, looks really good. Hot take, they should probably added the matte finish to the entire Pixel 9 series, but they didn't, so let's move on. Another significant change that Google made in the design process for the Pixel 9 Pro Fold was the actual shape of the phone itself. We went away from that passport type design that I really liked. It was more squat, a little bit more pocketable, and again, it resembled more a passport than anything else, and went closer to what we see in today's Galaxy Z Fold series, where the outside display is a little bit more narrow, and in general for this particular device, not the Z Fold, the inside display is a little bit more square, so it gets away from that 16:9 ratio. Now, the last 2 major design changes to the Pixel 9 Pro Fold are to its rails and its actual camera stack on the back of the phone. They went from a rounded design to a more flat design, closely resembling its Pixel 9 brethren. Google also ditched the signature visor design on the back of the phone for the camera stack to a more stacked camera stack on the rear of the phone. Now, they didn't comment on why they changed the camera design on the back, because a lot of the other phones have the visor island or plateau on the back of the phone, but I have to assume it has to do with some of the quirks that I'm going to cover a little bit later, like the charging coil, the NFC chip, and things like that. They probably had to make that camera stack a little bit more compact to kind of fit all the internals in that back of the phone. Now, one thing I want to call out before we move on is just how incredibly thin this device is. When it's unfolded, you can actually see that it is almost as thin as its USB-C port. And this is just a feat of engineering, and bravo to Google's engineering team designing this phone, designing the internals to make it as thin as it is. And then when you actually close the phone, it is no thicker than any of the other devices in the Google Pixel 9 series of today. Now, when it comes to the build quality and the hinge mechanism, starting with the build quality itself, the phone is made up of recycled aluminum, and Google has always done a fantastic job of just utilizing the materials that they use in the right way to make a premium experience. The rails of the phone have that recycled aluminum in that matte finish, and then you actually have Gorilla Glass Invictus 2 on the front and back of the phone, where the back is actually that matte finish, as we have seen on previous generations of Pixel devices. Now, when it comes to the inside display, it is what Google is calling ultra thin glass. Now, in my experiences and just my personal opinion, the inside display feels a bit malleable, meaning if you press it too hard or anything like that, there's a good chance you may break the display. So a word of caution, do not give this phone to a child to keep them occupied, no matter how loud they are. But regardless of that, just make sure you're a little bit more gentle with the inside display, regardless of just how useful it is. Now, when it comes to that hinge, Google has managed to upgrade that hinge from the year prior. You actually have a phone that now folds completely flat, whereas in the past you did have that ever so slight kind of like bend to the phone. So now we have a phone that folds completely flat. However, you still have that ever so slight crease in the middle of the display. Yes, it's noticeable, but it isn't incredibly distracting, and seeing just how thin this device is unfolded, I'm okay with that ever so slight crease. On the hardware, the fit and finish is fantastic, and it's actually held up really, really well. Since day one, I've gone caseless and have experienced 2 drops, both on pretty hard floors. There are some micro scratches on the display, but the phone has held up in spite of that. Now, one thing that has actually worried me in terms of durability when it comes to the Google Pixel 9 Pro Fold is its inner screen durability. I know that Google has what they call ultra thin glass on the inside, but unfortunately I am someone who is subscribed to the Pixel Fold subreddit, and when I get notifications about the failure of the inside screen, it just gives me a little bit of a pause. So what I've actually done is get the insurance that Google offers, which is through Asurion as a third party, but it's a little bit of peace of mind. I don't like paying for insurance. I don't generally get insurance on any of my phones just because I'm generally, knock on wood, pretty good with them. So at this point, I have the $15 insurance. It gives me a little peace of mind and gives me a little bit of confidence to continue to walk around caseless with this phone. And now the phone hasn't given me any indication that the inner screen is going to fail. But again, I want to be one step ahead and I want to be more safe than sorry. The hinge mechanism makes folding and unfolding a premium experience and hasn't made me lose confidence in its quality. 3.5 months in, I average about 3 folds per day and regularly use the bigger display for media consumption, some research, some note-taking, and some messaging. If you were to ask me today, do I have trust in the longevity and durability of the hinge mechanism and the display, my quick answer will be no. At this point, I've been very fortunate that this device has held up really well in spite of the couple drops that I've had, but I cannot say that this will be the case for everyone else. But for me, as of right now, I've had great experiences with this phone and it has held up really well. But what about the Tensor G4? At this point, the Tensor G4 has held up pretty well under a relatively light workload. I don't necessarily press the processor too much, but in my daily use, it does a lot of what I need pretty effortlessly. If I'm doing media consumption, if I'm writing in a Word doc or a spreadsheet or using Gemini, the phone does pretty well. And I don't think that those simple tasks are pushing the processor to its limit. Now, moving on from the Tensor G4, we're gonna look at the impact of the processor, the G4, on the battery itself. And unsurprisingly, the battery life isn't great. It's pretty much continuing what we saw on the OG Pixel Fold. Google managed to shave off millimeters off the phone, off the device when it's unfolded, making it incredibly thin. But what they also did was they actually reduced the size of the battery to fit within the confines of the device. We went from a 4,821 milliamp hour battery all the way down to 4,650 milliamp hours. This reduction, while making the device thinner, obviously doesn't make battery life any better than what we saw previously. Rather than continue to complain about something I cannot change, and it's going to take kind of like a breakthrough in battery technology, which we will see soon in silicon carbon batteries. But as of right now, as of this recording, we are stuck with the same old battery technology, which has its limitations. Now, rather than complain, like I said, I actually ended up buying a battery bank and I just top up the phone whenever I can. If I'm at work, I know I don't have great cell reception, which will kill my battery. So again, I'm charging at work, I'm charging in the car and things like that. With those charges, I generally will average about 5 to 6 hours of screen on time. Without topping up or charging throughout the day, I'm averaging about 2 to 3 hours of screen on time, which isn't great. But again, do yourself a favor, get a cheap battery bank from Amazon, and it's just gonna help your experience overall. Now, the displays are, as we saw on the Pixel 9 Pro, fantastic. They're nice and bright, they're vivid, they're 120 Hertz. They are amongst the best in the industry in terms of just the quality of the display. They get plenty bright. When it comes to the inside display, we still have the same issues we had in the past, which is it doesn't get very bright. And so outdoor visibility is not advised if you're gonna watch or read books or watch videos outside. It's gonna be pretty difficult under direct sunlight, while that outside display, when it's folded, does a fantastic job of displaying text and video and things like that. But again, that inside display, while it's a fingerprint magnet, it also isn't great under direct sunlight. With that caveat aside, this phone is incredibly useful in its unfolded state. If you hook up a wireless keyboard and you prop it up on a stand, you pretty much have like a tablet keyboard combination. This is fantastic for documents, spreadsheets, and then again, movies, reading, and things of that nature. So it really does kind of fit the bill for a lot of the things that we're gonna do on a regular basis. And you combine that with Google's suite of productivity apps, and you really do have your own little kind of like workstation. And in a pinch, this is really, really useful. Now in my Google Pixel 9 Pro XL and my Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra reviews, I commented on AI and the intent to integrate more AI or use of AI into my workflow, professionally and personally. From a professional standpoint, in my role at my job, without getting too specific, I needed to hire a new individual into a specific role. What I did was, rather than trying to research different interview questions, I just simply asked Gemini, create a pool of questions for a role at my organization. This is the kind of organization that I have, and this is the type of role that I'm looking for. And lo and behold, Gemini produced an incredible amount of questions that varied from role specific to behavior and psychological specific. And now personally, working on my videos, even for this video specifically, I have an entire outline that I wrote, and it was a big outline and I didn't know how to adapt this outline into a script. And what Gemini did was really just organize my thoughts, all of the thoughts that I had, and made them into a very concise script with timing and things like that, and how to add the B-roll or where to add the B-roll. This has been incredibly useful. I can't overstate how useful Gemini has been, and AI as a whole, as a tool to produce or a tool for productivity. Taking it a step further, over the last few days, I've been gardening and just trying to figure out certain things, and I simply asked Gemini, I planted garlic cloves about 2 weeks ago. When will I actually start to see the plants coming from the ground? I have a saltwater pool, and I was recently told that my water has nitrates in them. What are nitrates? Why are they bad? And how do I get rid of them?
Nitrates are compounds that can form in your pool water, often from things like decaying leaves or even from the chlorine reacting with nitrogen in the water.
Overall, I've been incredibly happy with Gemini and how integrated Gemini has been into the Pixel OS. It makes using the phone much, much more fun, resourceful, and really is your companion. Now, what about these cameras? The cameras continue to be an absolute delight. If you know anything about a Google Pixel, you know it takes incredible photos, and the Pixel 9 Pro Fold is no different. The photos the camera and sensors take, in tandem with its software, consistently produce impressive photos that certainly exude a style specific to the Pixel line. It's contrasty, it's punchy, but not too much, and the photos are incredibly detailed. You can take photos with confidence, and it's really exciting when the phone is processing. You want to see what the end result is going to be. A good phone camera gives its user confidence to take photos that they know will be fantastic, regardless of their level of experience. Now, as we kind of wrap up this video, I want to end things on the quirks, and there are certainly some quirks. First among them is the NFC chip. So with the way that Google engineered this phone, they moved a little bit of the internals around, so the NFC chip isn't at the very top anymore. I believe it is a little bit lower, closer to the charging coil. Now, what this means for you in everyday use is if you're going to use wireless payments like Google Wallet, and you tap to pay, in my experiences, my payments were declined initially. And I thought maybe it was my card, maybe it was something going on the network level. So I just kind of chalked it up to that, used my actual card and paid for whatever it was that I was paying for. I went to another store and did it again. I'm like, there's no way possible that I'm getting declined with different cards at different stores. I actually did a quick search and found on Reddit that basically the way that Google engineered the phone, the NFC chip was moved closer to the middle of the phone. So when you are making payments, you actually have to hold the phone up closer to the middle of the phone over the NFC terminal for that wireless payment. Another quirk that is actually a little bit more frustrating than the NFC debacle is the placement of the coils. The coils were shifted around in the back of the phone, which makes charging a little bit more tricky. If you have a Pixel Dock 1 or 2, you would think that a Pixel device, whether it be a foldable or otherwise, would just pop on the dock and continue to charge as it normally would, but that's not the case with this phone. Unfortunately, because the placement of the coil doesn't line up with the placement of the coil on the dock, the Google Home presentation that normally happens when you put a Pixel device on a Pixel dock doesn't happen. And unfortunately, I've been relegated to buying a 3D printed lift from Amazon to kind of lift the phone so that the coils meet each other. So should you buy the Pixel 9 Pro Fold? The answer is really, it depends. It really depends on how you're intending to use it, knowing its limitations and things of that nature. Me personally, I think this device is fantastic. I've loved every minute of this device, even in spite of its battery woes. I've enjoyed using this phone on a daily basis, whether it be the camera, opening the display to do productivity or watch videos or so forth and so on. This has been a really, really fun phone, and Google has done a fantastic job of leveling up the OG Pixel Fold into its current iteration. I'm pretty excited to see what the advancements will be with the Tensor G5 and whatever battery technologies they pack into this phone. If they use the silicon carbon battery technology in the future Pixel Folds, that'll be fantastic, but I imagine that's gonna drive up pricing pretty high. But in spite of that, in spite of its limitations, I love this phone. I would recommend it. Obviously, utilize your trade-ins as much as possible, but I have been a very happy Pixel Fold user at this point. But that would just about wrap it up for this video. If there's anything I missed or anything you would like to know about the Google Pixel 9 Pro Fold, please leave a comment. If you liked this video, like it. If you didn't like it, dislike it. But if you really liked it, please hit that subscribe button. Let a couple friends know that you think might be interested in this type of content. Thank you all for watching, and you have a great day.